Hello guys, once again welcome to my channel. In this video I'll look at the 7 stages of AI machine learning. This video is an extension of the previous video. So I look at one of the projects using a sample data known as Titanic. So I want to import Pandas library as BD. Then I run it. So I've imported the library. Next is to read the data. So my next step is to read the data. So I can say hash read the data. Okay. So I'll say bd dot read underscore csv. So the name of the file is Titanic .csv. Okay. So when I run it, I'm able to see the Titanic file. Okay. Now, you know why I'm giving it. So I'm giving it a df. Okay. So df stands for data frame. So data frame presents your data just like a worksheet or an Excel, as you can see. Okay. So in this file, I don't want to display every records. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to display only the top 5. Okay. Now, if I call on my df, I'm able to see the first 5 records. Okay. So if I call on my df, I'm able to see only the 5 records. So I now have the records here. Okay. So I have the passenger ID, survived, P class, the name, the gender, sex, age, SP, patch, ticket, fare, cabin, and impact. So those are the columns that I have. So if I look at this data here, like the age, okay, before that, okay. Now I want to see, I've already displayed the first 5 records. Okay. So I've gone through the field and checks the age. It doesn't look correct. So the age here, so if I colon of my df, okay, like the age here doesn't look correct. Like we don't have a file like this one. So this tells me that the data is not clean. Okay, you also have the nulls. Okay, and the impact. So this is where these people started the journey. Okay. So I'm going to display on the 5 records for the sake of this exercise. Okay, now let me get into what we call data wrangling. For data wrangling, I want to get to know more about the different columns that we have. So to know the data type, to see if there is nulls, so that's what we call the data wrangling. It's all about knowing the data type and also to see if there is nulls. Okay, so I'll call on my df.info. Okay, to know the kind of records we have in this particular column. When I run it, okay, so when I run it, I'm able to see the records that I have. Okay, so we have the passenger ID with 891 no nulls, int 64, so 5 to have 891 no nulls, B class 891, all true. Okay, so from passenger ID all the way up to the age, up to the fare, here there's no nulls. So we get to see we have 2 columns with nulls. That is the cabin and impact. So the 2 doesn't look very good. Okay, again we have this the age here as data type float, so we need to change this one to int. Okay, now maybe want to replace or probably learn much about this data by using, so you want to learn much about this data, we can use df.describe. Okay, so if you type df.describe, we're gonna learn about this data. Okay, so we get to see the count, the mean. Okay, so if I used, there's a 5 column. Okay, we get to see 891 so this 5 column we have 891 but no nulls, and we can replace the nulls with the mean in case of any outliers in it. So in case you have any outliers, we can replace them with the mean. Okay, now what do I actually want to do? I want to see how many nulls, how many null values I have in the different columns. So in that case, I will say, so I want to get to see the nulls, so I'll say df is null. Okay, df is null function, so I'll use the df.isNull function, and I get to see, so when I run it, I get to see it returns true or false, but I want to see the sum, so I don't want to see the the false, the true and the false. I want to see the sum, or rather I want to sum, so therefore I'll say instead of .df.isNull, I'll write df.isNull.sum. Okay, so when I run it, I'm able to see this record here. So I get no nulls in passengers, so there's no nulls in passenger ID all the way down to fare. Okay, so I don't have nulls, but when it come to Gebin, the Gebin we have 687 null values, so that's a lot. So then back we have only 2 nulls, and we can replace that. Okay, so this particular project, the Gebin will not really serve us anything, so my aim here is to drop this Gebin column. So I'm going to drop this Gebin column. Okay, so for me to drop, I say df dot drop. So I'm going to drop the columns. So the column I'm going to drop here is the Gebin. So I'm going to drop the Gebin, and the x is equal to 1, and the in place equals to true. Okay, so when I run it, it gives me an error. So the error is Gebin not found. Okay, Gebin not found. Okay, so it means our Gebin, the letter C is in capital. So run it. Okay, so I now have, okay, now if I scroll on my right, I don't have the Gebin anymore. So if I call on my df, I get to see that there's no Gebin because I've already dropped it. So I don't have the Gebin anymore. Now remember, I'm still in the second stage of cleaning my data. So I'm still on cleaning the data by removing the duplicates, removing the nulls. Okay, now if I look at the age, so if I look at the age here, if I look at the age, then nulls, there is none. We don't have any. The other one that is remaining is this empack. So the empack here, so the empack has got how many nulls? So if I run this one, the Gebin disappeared, has been dropped. So I'm remaining with empack with 2 nulls, as you can see. So how do we do with the nulls? Okay, now empack is a categorical value. As you can see, it's a categorical value. Now if I have two nulls here, I would like to replace it with the most frequent value. So I'm going to replace the most frequent value, this column here, that appears in these impact values. So this will replace for us the most frequent value. So I can have the first 5 and so I'm going to use the mod function. So I'll use the mod function. So the mod function here will help us to replace the most frequent values. Then I give a markdown. Can give a markdown. So I'm going to use the mod function to replace the most frequent value. Okay. So still on data cleaning stage. So I'm trying to replace the nulls. So on here, on my data frame, so I'm going to use df impact dot mod. So I'm going to say df df impact dot mod. Zero. So in this dot mod function, I want to replace the most frequent value. So if I run it, so impact is in this one is capital P. Okay, so I get to see that the most frequent value is the S. Now on the dot mod function again, I want to use a replace method. And what do I want to replace? So I'm going to replace the nulls. So I'm going to say yeah. So before that, I'm going to assign this impact frequency underscore frequency. Now I want to use the replace method. So I'll say df impact dot replace okay dot null. So nulls read in this way. Okay, a comma here. So I'm going to replace them back underscore frequency. place true. So in place equals to true. Then I close the bracket. So if I run it, it gives me an error. So the error name NB is not defined. So the error here is the name NB is not defined, which is true. So that means I need to go back. And add another library. So I'm going to import another library. I'm going to import NumPy as NB. Then I run it. Then now I run. Perfect. Now, so I have successfully replaced the nulls on impact. Now, so how do I know I've replaced the nulls? That's the question. Someone may ask, how do you know the nulls have been placed on impact? So I can call up the function to check. I'll call up the function df is null. Dot sum to see if the nulls been replaced. Okay, now if you see my records here, you don't have nulls from passenger ID all the way down to embark. So you no longer have the nulls. So that means I've successfully replaced the nulls on impact, since we had only 2 of them. Okay. Now if I go on and copy df or type df.info, I get to see it's looking perfectly good. Okay, so passenger ID, we have 0 nulls all through or all down. After impact, we don't have the nulls, so it's looking perfectly good. So my interest now is the age. So my interest lies here. So I want to change the data type float 64 to int. So for me to change it, I will insert a new arrow there. Okay, then I type the function of the code here, dfh equal sign dfh dot as type, open the bracket, in 64, then I close the bracket. So this code here is going to place the data type float to int. So when I run it, then I run it here. So I get to see the data type has changed to int64. So I've successfully changed the data type from float to int64. Okay, so we've done, or I've done or I'm done with data cleaning. Okay, so I'm done with data cleaning. So if I want to visualize on this data, I could. So now that I've perfectly done my cleaning here, I can now visualize on this data. Okay, so those are the 2 steps out of 7. Okay, so I'll cover the remaining 4 steps or 5 steps in my next video. So you can subscribe to my channel, can like, can share. Okay, thank you for watching, and see you again in my next video.